Hello everyone, it's Sean Rowe here, and today's post I'm talking about Airbnb hosting. For those of you that don't know about Airbnb or the business of Airbnb, for the last 18 months, actually just over 12 months, I've been an Airbnb host. In the start of 2014, I ended up buying a small investment property. It was a studio warehouse conversion in Tennyson Street. When I bought the property, I had a long-term tenant, so I didn't really need to think much about it, and I just kind of allowed the rental to pay as much off on the loan as possible. But I was probably short about $100 a month. Fast forward towards the start of 2015, my long-term tenant decided to move out, and my real estate agent decided to let me know that my tenant was moving out and gave me the option of kind of finding a new tenant. I had two options in that situation. Obviously, the first one would be to explore getting a long-term tenant. But Airbnb started to have some traction, and I'd heard that most people, or a lot of people, were making some decent money doing an Airbnb hosting business. So what happened at that? I decided to liaise and talk with some people and reach and contact other people that were doing some Airbnbs. And I took the plunge, and I said to myself, give myself 3 months, see how I go. If worst case scenario, I don't make any money, or I'm working really hard to make some decent money, then I'll end up shutting the business down and putting the property on a long-term lease. 18 months later, 18 months or just over 12 months later, obviously I've been doing Airbnb for that extended period, and I've come up with my top 10 tips of how to run an effective Airbnb. Tip number 1, like any business, set your goal for your Airbnb hosting business. So that is crucial to figure out, some of your costs, your repayments. If you're owning the property, you've obviously got body corp that you need to think about. So set your specific goals of what kind of figures you want to achieve for the month. However, sometimes going into this, you're kind of a little bit unsure what you can achieve. After about 2 to 3 months, what I realized, and I started in the wintry months, my occupancy rate was anywhere between 20 to 23 days. I was charging $99 a night and $30 cleaning fee, and $112 a night on the weekend, and $30 cleaning fee. The reason why I picked those figures as my pricing strategy was quite simple. There was 3 other people doing Airbnbs in the same apartment complex, and I just needed to undercut the market to make sure I get enough reviews to start boosting up my post. Tip number 2, do your research in your area. So in relation to what I was saying before I jumped on, I did my research. So I literally typed my address in Airbnb to see what was available in the area. Fortunately, there was 3 people that were already doing Airbnbs in the same apartment complex. So I basically copied them, clicked the calendar, had a look at, what their occupancy rate. So generally at the end of the month, I've looked at the following month to check what their occupancy rate was, and to gauge and figure out what their occupancy rate based off that. Then I undercut everyone in the market by putting my prices about $5 cheaper than the cheapest person out there, to make sure that people booked my Airbnb first, because I didn't have any reviews, and it's very important to get reviews. Tip number 3, make sure there are plenty of photos of your property. So very crucial, plenty of photos, and good quality photos. Spend a little bit of extra money, find a friend that's very good with photography, and get them to take some photos. What I've noticed also is some people ask questions in the inquiry section. So for example, in my property, they asked if there was blinds that block out the main door, or the back door. So I took photos of it. So next time that anyone checked out that property, there would be photos up there. Tip number 4, set the right price, and this is a crucial one. At the beginning, I would recommend to undercut the market and make sure you have it at a cheaper price to get some ratings. Then as you get a couple of ratings underneath your belt, maybe anything above 10, then start tweaking your pricing strategy. In summer, generally I jack up my prices, and generally if there was a big an event on, because my property is very close to the MCG and the tennis precinct, events like the AFL Grand Final, I would jack my prices up to almost double, $199 a night. And also with the tennis being on, I jack my prices up to $199. And people are like, oh, that's a bit unfair. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and demand is quite high at those periods. And literally, I'm an 8-minute walk from my property to the MCG or the tennis centre. So if you really want to book that place, you have to pay premium dollars. Tip number 5 is your response speed. It is crucial when you get inquiries coming in that you respond quickly. You want to be able to have a response within an hour on your listing. That is crucial because customers will come onto your Airbnb website, have a look at the response speed, and if it says, respond within a day, respond within an hour, respond within 2 weeks, obviously they're going to contact the person that's going to respond within the hour. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to kind of respond straight away with all the information. Sometimes life gets in the way. You're out for dinner. So generally in that case, if I've got a message that comes through, I pause my dinner and say, listen, I need to reach out to this person. And I just message, hey, just out for dinner. Can I respond back in detail after I finish dinner? This means that you're in with that responding window, and that title of responding within an hour stays on your Airbnb account. Tip number 6, instant booking versus booking confirmation. Now, this is one that's interesting. I've got fellow friends that are Airbnb hosts. Some agree with the instant booking. Some want to control who wants to come into their property. For me personally, I prefer instant booking because it allows someone to book the property straight away, and then I don't need to approve them. Some people like to have the control of approving who they want coming into their property, but for me, I don't live at the property. It is a business. I want to make as much money out of the property as possible. So what I want to do is make sure that instant booking's on, and the instant booking criteria for me is that if they've got enough reviews and they've used Airbnb before, it already filters and goes through. Some people like to talk to their guest and figure out whether their guest is appropriate for their accommodation, and allow the booking confirmation as a form of doing it. Either or works, but me personally, I prefer instant booking book straight away, and that person guarantees a booking straight away. Tip number 7, becoming a superhost. Now, it is crucial to become a superhost. Now, this is a badge that Airbnb gives, and when you become a superhost, it allows you to push your listing higher up in the search engine. It takes a while to become a superhost. You need a certain criteria, and in the post, I've written what the criteria is. And once you get the superhost criteria, make sure you sustain it and keep it. I've known fellow friends that have had an Airbnb business. They lost their superhost, and it's now taken them 12 months to become a superhost. So make sure you keep it. Tip number 8, the key handover. Now, this is an interesting topic because Airbnb, you're dealing with customers, and it's a people-based business. I prefer to meet my guests to hand over the keys. That way I can show them in, tell them about the property, ask them any questions in relation to whether they need anything, like supermarkets or where they wanted to go out at night, and kind of give them the local knowledge. Sometimes life gets in the way, so then I organise a lockbox and make it very transparent and easy for them to figure out where the lockbox is and talk them through the process. So that's tip number 8. Tip number 9 is giving guests some extras. So for me, giving guests a little bit of extras kind of helps their stay and makes their stay more accommodating. For example, 2 Mikey cards, bottled water, coffee, any of those little extras that you think will help the guest have an amazing stay, put it in there. It just makes just a little bit more better experience for the guests. Good food guides, a map of the city, any of those things, to name a few. Things that got thrown out at me the other day, which I'm going to start to implement, was games. So I'm actually in the process of looking at getting some secondhand board games to put in the Airbnb, because obviously they're away. They've got some extra time to spend playing board games and things like that. Tip number 10, and the final tip for today, is keep adjusting and tweaking. This tip is crucial. You need to keep the finger on the pulse. You need to keep adjusting your prices. You need to keep tweaking to make sure your Airbnb is current and up to date. By jumping on the website and tweaking and adjusting, Airbnb realizes that you're working the business. And for some reason, I believe, and I don't have any proof around this, but it realizes that there's a solid algorithm that you're working the business, and it pushes you up towards a better search. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this post. If you have anyone that will benefit from this post, please share it by clicking the share link, or even copying the link and sending it to them. Otherwise, you can write their name in the comment section below, and have a nice day.